Hello, today we at ChinaDaily.com.cn are happy to meet with Mr. Mark Kenber, CEO of the Climate Group. The Climate Group is an international organization promoting low carbon development and also other programs that try to slow down global warming. So, Mr. Mark Kenber, what goals does Climate Group want to achieve by China Redesign? Because this morning, the Climate Group just launched China Redesign program. So why redesign?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Why redesign? Well, China Redesign is a program aimed at helping Chinese cities forge a new low-carbon development path. We've seen in the recently published 12 five-year plan that green growth and low-carbon development are at the heart of China's development strategy for the coming decades. And much of the responsibility for implementing that will be devolved to cities, both the large cities and the medium cities. We also know that nearly half, or probably now more than half, China's population lives in cities. Mm-hmm. We know that by the middle of the century, perhaps 3/4 of the population will be in cities. So it's going to be urban areas that bear the brunt of responsibility for development, and also which will determine whether we have a prosperous low-carbon future or a high-carbon future wrapped by climate change. So that's the first reason we're working with cities in China, and we believe that Chinese cities will set the path for the future. Now, China Redesign is based on the Climate Group's core beliefs that it is possible to have a development strategy that provides jobs, eradicates poverty, creates new business opportunities, and that is low carbon, that is a clean revolution, clean development strategy. And China Redesign is about putting that into practice. And it has 3 core elements. Mm-hmm. One is capacity building, bringing experiences from around the world, but also from within China, to help urban planners and municipal authorities create low carbon plans that help them contribute to their part of the 12 five-year plan. Second is putting on the ground concrete pilot and demonstration projects that show that the technologies that we're talking about, the solutions we're considering, really work in practice and can be beneficial. And thirdly, to communicate that, to spread the word to other cities within China, but also, we believe, to provide an amazing example for cities all around the world, not only in developing countries, but in industrialized countries too.
Are there similar programs in the world?
Well, there are a growing number of examples of cities around the world that have found that adopting a low carbon approach is not only good for their emissions, but most importantly is good for the municipal budgets, it's good for business opportunities in those cities, and it creates healthier, more pleasant places to live. So we've documented cities in Europe, in the United States, and in the developing world, in India, in China, in Africa, that have managed to reduce their emissions and create jobs and create prosperity for their citizens. And that might be through a combination of better transport planning with better public transport, energy efficient industries that reduce local air pollution but also use energy more efficiently, using distributed energy to provide energy services to people who don't have access to it. So there'll be a range of different solutions depending on the local circumstances. But in many, many cases, we've found that the objectives of development and growth are absolutely compatible with the objectives of low-carbon future.
Well, just now you've already mentioned China's new 12 five-year plan. So how do you evaluate the plan, and especially its energy efficiency and environment protection targets?
Well, I think, like many others, the Climate Group is very excited by the 12 five-year plan because of the fact that it places green growth, low-carbon development at the very heart of China's development strategy. It's not a marginal piece, it is the heart of it. And it's because the Chinese government clearly sees that markets in the future, markets for exports for Chinese companies, but also the way the world economy is developing will be a green way, a way that is highly efficient in the use of resources, particularly energy, in which countries have energy security by being both efficient but developing a wide variety of energy sources, and reducing dependence on fossil fuels, both coal, although there are plenty of domestic resources because of air pollution and other issues, but also reducing dependence on imports of oil and gas and other fossil fuels. So we're very excited about that. And it's you can tell that it's not just an idea, because there are concrete targets for energy efficiency, for carbon intensity, for renewables. That makes it serious. If you start putting targets which you have to measure and monitor, then those targets are likely to be achieved, and that provides a real stimulus for the sort of low carbon development we've been talking about.
Is this your first trip to China, or have you been to China before?
I've been before. I came here first, I think, about 4 years ago, because of my work with the climate group, and I've been coming every 4 to 6 months since, and I'm seeing incredible changes. I mean, it's just the pace of development, not only of developments on the ground, but the thinking around low carbon development, around the clean revolution, is spectacular. I mean, as we know,
can you give an example?
Well, I mean, if you look at the emerging new energy sectors, I think it's 3 of the 5 largest solar companies in the world are Chinese. There's Chinese leadership in in the wind sector, Chinese leadership in electric vehicles, in solar panels for hot water heating, in clean coal technologies. So all of those are just examples of the seriousness, not only the government, but the private sector, both through on its own and through joint ventures, the seriousness with which those sectors see this issue. And, you know, I haven't travelled much outside Beijing, but I'm hearing fantastic stories about things that are happening in places like Tianjin, in Chongqing, and all the cities that we'll be working with as part of China Redesign.
What kind of examples, I mean, do you know any of the best examples that China's other cities can emulate?
Well, I mean, as I say, there are examples from around the world. I think you can take the best practices from around the world, and as I've said, there are cities in the US, Boulder in Colorado, Leicester and Woking in the UK, Berlin in Germany, and there are many others that have taken parts of the story. The exciting thing about China and other large emerging economies is that much of the urban infrastructure is still to be built. So rather than retrofitting, which can often be complicated and sometimes expensive, here you have the opportunity to design a visionary low-carbon city almost from scratch. That's not to say the cities don't exist, but new infrastructure is going to be built, and that you can design in the smart control systems, the intelligent energy use systems, all those pieces that make for a low-carbon development that is also good for the population.
But what challenges does China face in really meeting its targets?
Well, I mean, I think one of the challenges is perhaps the lack of experience, lack of institutional capacity, and that's what the climate group, through China Redesign, is helping to bring that capacity. But it's not only a question of importing capacity. The skills often exist, but it's bringing the right people together in the cities, Chinese people and international companies and experts, to help create those sort of plans. And I think an important thing is we very much see these cities as an example which can then be transmitted to the rest of the world. So apart from the institutional challenges, there are challenges associated with access to resources, and as we know, a high dependence on coal for electricity generation. As we've seen, the efficiency of electricity generation from coal is improving, and one of the big focuses of the 12th Five-Year Plan, both nationally and at the city level, is to develop other energy sources. So I think when we talk about barriers, there are more challenges, and the challenges are ones that will be overcome. I have no doubt about that.
Well, China has an ambitious ambitious plan to really tap into nuclear power, but with the fallout nuclear crisis in Japan, well, China has to reconsider its ambitious plans. So, what do you think that Japan's nuclear crisis really has on its impact on the world in trying to make use of nuclear power?
Well, I mean, obviously the crisis in the Fukushima nuclear power station has meant that almost all governments around the world that have nuclear facilities are assessing their own facilities to make sure that they are safe, that they are secure. And in some countries, there's been almost an impulsive reaction saying, okay, we're not interested in nuclear anymore. I personally think that will will fade away. Many countries do see nuclear as being a part of their energy mix, both now and in the future. I think we should remember that the plant that has suffered these problems in Japan is a very old plant,
Yeah.
and new technology is being developed all the time. The third, fourth generation technology that people are talking about, it won't be perfect. There is no energy source that is 100% safe and secure. But there are problems with all energy sources, whether it be hydro, look at the number of people who suffered from coal mining. But the new generation of nuclear promises to be much safer, and I think that many countries will see, as I say, nuclear as being part of their mix. What's happened in Japan is a wake-up call in the certainty and the safety of these plants needs to be absolutely assured as much as possible. But I think it also means that we need to have a better public debate about nuclear, because a lot of the information or misinformation about nuclear in the public domain means that we don't have a proper discussion about it. We don't understand really what the risks are, what the challenges are, and what needs to be put in place to overcome them. So my hope is this means that we can have a frank and open debate and a discussion about nuclear. Where is it appropriate? Where should it be placed? And what security measures do we need to put in place to make sure that it is as secure as possible?